welcome to our webinar on behalf of Lighting Global IFC. This is going to be a super short and snappy Lighting Global webinar. In the next 27 minutes, we'll cover path to profitability and the P2P capsule. So as many of you know, path to profitability is a framework and methodology for PAYGO and off-grid solar companies, which Lighting Global has been working on with TIL Ventures since 2018 when we launched in Hong Kong. And this methodology and framework goes well beyond your P&L and traditional business Excel spreadsheets and really tries to unpick the off-grid distribution and sales challenges that off-grid companies and PAYGO companies face, but also that investors face when they try to analyze companies. It's designed to be rolled out through in-person workshops and in face-to-face meetings, but due to COVID, clearly, we very quickly pivoted and we've taken the initiative to translate specific aspects of this methodology into a hopefully user-friendly online model. And this tool is called the P2P Capsule. We think this capsule will allow you to really think about your business in different ways, but also analyze your business in a new way, which we think is very, very exciting. And we sincerely encourage you to spend time with the tool to rethink aspects of your business. Two key things I want to share with you. The first one is, if you'd like to work with Path to Profitability going forward, then please drop us a note at Lighting Global. And we would like to continue engaging with you. We can't do so in person clearly, but we would very, very much like you to fill in a survey that we will share with you by email. Our only way of getting feedback from you in terms of how you use these tools is through surveys. And so we would be very appreciative if you could spend, we think it takes about 4 minutes to fill in. If you could complete that, that would be very, very great. So I'll be sending you the survey link later. And without further ado, many thanks, and over to Milan Samani, Eric Samanis, and Robbie Burnett-Stewart from TIL Ventures, who have co-created this P2P capsule tool.
Wonderful. Thank you, Naomi. My name is Milan Samani. I'm a partner at TIL Ventures. I'm going to spend 5 minutes doing a little bit of context setting, and then I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Robbie, for a 15-minute demo of the P2P capsule. Now, the link to download the P2P capsule has been sent to you. It's embedded in the invite to this webinar, but you do not need to download it for this webinar. We'll be taking you through a demo on screen. So, Path to Profitability, or P2P, is a unique framework and methodology for companies to define the key drivers behind their business model, identify likely barriers to profitability in that business model, and also provide some guidance in how to resolve them. It's been created by TIL Ventures for IFC and tailored specifically for off-grid solar firms operating in emerging markets, early stage companies, scaling companies, and companies which are established but not yet profitable. Now, what comprises P2P? Well, it's comprised of 3 elements. The first is tools, and here there are 2 tools. At-scale operational modeling, where key flows of product, information, and money are mapped in detail from the head office down through the last mile operating unit to the final end user to determine all the work that has to be performed and accounted for. The second tool is at-scale financial modeling. Here, these activity drivers are used to model and simulate the total resourcing, for example, the HR, assets, advertising, working capital, that is needed to credibly perform that work. At-scale financial modeling can determine if profitability is plausible at scale. Equally useful is that it identifies the key activity drivers and their associated costs that are disproportionately preventing the business model from being profitable. The second element of P2P are in-person one-to-one workshops. These typically last a week with follow-up sessions in the following month. Here, the tools are applied and the operational and financial model is created. But the workshops also allow in-depth evaluation, analysis, and a consideration of the whys. Why does a business model look the way it does? Why or why not are some operational changes, which may make the numbers look good on paper, why may they work or fail in practice? And all the companies that participated in these one-to-one workshops and invited us in were struggling to establish a path to profitability. And the workshops and tools revealed that the underlying causes for this had no quick fixes. There were no silver bullet solutions. Sadly, that's rarely the case. The modeling uncovered hidden and often uncomfortable truths around how much cost needed to be removed and actually how impractical that was given the current constraints of the business model. But armed with this knowledge, the owners and operators of those businesses were able to focus their efforts on the areas of their business that made the most difference, and in some cases made some fairly fundamental changes. Now, all the companies that brought us in for these workshops found them valuable, and in many cases, the workshops did in fact trigger very real shifts. But they are a significant resource commitment, and of course, resources are limited, and COVID hampered the ability for us to run these workshops in any case. So as Naomi said, this P2P capsule was created. The capsule takes the essence of the tools and the essence of the workshop, and it represents them in the guise of a self-guided software tool. It asks for simplified information about your products and operational model, not enough to capture anywhere near the full complexity of your business, but just enough to be useful. It then asks you probing questions about your business model, questions that go to the heart of how your business creates, exchanges, and captures value, but in a more quantitative and analytical manner than you may perhaps have done before. It then takes some of your answers and guides you to calculate the 3 key operational costs we find invariably hamper profitability in off-grid solar companies, and reveals both the implications and the underlying causes. Now, naturally, it cannot capture the complexity of your business, nor provide detailed guidance as to the required changes. That can only be done in in-depth one-to-one workshops. But it is designed to capture enough information about your business to provide relevant and tailored insights. And we've had 2 cohorts of beta testers earlier this year, and the universal feedback was that the 3 to 4 hours spent by each company was a valuable investment of time. The tool is free to use, and the download link for both a PC and a Mac has been shared with you already, and I'm sure will be shared subsequent to this webinar again. The program is designed to run on a computer, so it's not a mobile app and cannot be run on a phone. And all data is stored locally on your machine. Any data that you input is not shared with anyone. We'll now spend the next 15 minutes giving you a short demo.
Thanks, Milan. So my name is Robbie, and I'm going to talk to you for about 15 minutes. In that time, I'll very briefly cover how to download P2P Capsule. I'll give you an overview of the tool. That should take 3 or 4 minutes. I'll give you a whistle-stop tour of the different sections of the tool. So this should take up the remaining time. I won't have time to go through the whole tool in detail. So if there are things that aren't clear at this stage, I'd encourage you to download the tool and just give it a go. If you still find yourself stuck, you can contact Kevin Kennedy at the IFC, who'll give you a hand. So firstly, running and installing P2P Capsule. It's pretty simple. Click on the download link and you'll be taken to this page here. There's a Mac and a Windows installer there. And you download and install in the usual way you do for a piece of software. And some further instructions are on this page if you get stuck. Once installed, go ahead and open it up. So you should see the introduction page here. This includes some background on P2P, what P2P Capsule is and how it works. Please do read through the information on this page before you start, as it will help you make sense of the rest of the tool and show some technical tips too. If you get confused at any point while using the tool, this page should be your first port of call. I won't read it out to you now, but lots of what I'm going to mention now will be covered in more detail here. Let's instead go to the dashboard page, which is what you see when you're finished this section and also whenever you open the tool. So this is your dashboard screen, and it's the central interface of P2P Capsule. I'll walk you through it. So the dashboard shows the structure of how you'll walk through P2P Capsule. You'll start with the business profile section. So in order for the tool to work, we'll need some simple information about your business model and your product. We'll get this out of the way at the start so you can focus on thinking about your business carefully for the rest of your journey. You'll choose an operational model archetype, then input key operational and financial parameters relating to your product and operational model. You'll then look at your business model through the lens of 3 key business model requirements. First, customer efficacy, then customer adoption, then competitor barrier. The aim of this section is to probe some of the fundamental logic behind your business model. Those are the probing questions Merlin referred to, and it will probably be the most challenging part of P2P Capsule. Finally, you'll be walked through some of the financial analyses that probe key numbers behind the profitability of your business model. You're probably all over your numbers, but as with the business model probes, these are probably unlike the typical financial calculations that you currently run for your business. Each of the shapes on this screen is a button that leads to that section. To go to that section, hover over the shape and click your mouse. Today, I'm working with a business model I made earlier, so I can immediately access all the sections, but when you download your version, you'll find that you can't access the section until you finish the previous one. As you progress through sections, the color of the shape will fill up. You can leave sections incomplete, but we suggest completing each section in turn. Important financial parameters are established within the business model alignment probe sections, so please make sure you finish these sections before starting the numbers. So with that overview complete, I'll spend the next 10 minutes briefly running over each section in the tool. In the operational model archetype section, you'll be asked to fill in numbers for your target geography, population sizes, and whether you're targeting low-grid or off-grid customers. We navigate through the tool by clicking these buttons. Please fill in at least one box for each question, as otherwise the capsule will think that you aren't targeting any customers at all. So for this demo, I'm using a geography of Myanmar, and I'm targeting 0-grid customers. When you finish the section, you can either navigate to the home screen by clicking the capsule icon in the corner, or by clicking Go to the dashboard, which I'll get to at the bottom of the page. P2P Capsule is designed to be used by all kinds of off-grid solar businesses. As such, we've made it as flexible as possible. To help tailor the questions more closely towards your business, we've created 3 operational model archetypes that reflect the different sales models commonly used by off-grid solar businesses. You should choose the archetype which reflects the largest part of your business. I've selected the commission archetype, so it's shown up in yellow. Once I finish the section, I can click the button at the bottom to go back to the dashboard. Next is the business profile section. Here, you'll be asked for some of the inputs on your products and your operational model. I won't have time to explain all of these in full, but I'll point out some confusions that came up with our beta testers. First, your products. You input the information in 3 stages. You start by listing your product categories. These should be the product types that are independent of each other. So for example, a solar fridge and a solar TV would be different categories, but a deluxe radio and a budget radio would both belong to a solar radio category. You may have many product categories. If you don't want to put them all in, that's fine. Just bear in mind that the financial analysis will only apply to the part of your business that relates to the category you enter. Once you put in your product categories, enter the different versions. If there's only one version, simply repeat the name of the category. For example, I'd write solar lantern here again. Then, for each product version, fill in the financial details. Please read the definitions carefully, as they may differ from what you're used to. Then also fill in some information about installment payments. You'll be asked to enter some at-scale penetration rates and market shares for each product category. Note here that at scale means the level you think you can achieve by the end of your investment period. You can also think of it as the level you need to achieve to meet your sales target at the end of your investment period. You'll then be asked to fill in your marketing mix, some data on your salespeople or retailers if that's the archetype that you've chosen, and finally on your business's funding. That's enough for now. I'll move on to the rest of the tool. For the business model alignment probes, please read the introductory section first. You'll do the probes focusing on just one product, so you'll be asked to pick a product that you feel is strategically important to your business. I've picked the budget lantern for this exercise. As Miller mentioned earlier, an in-depth P2P workshop has two parts. There's the financial and operational modeling using the P2P tools, but there's also an analysis of the business model itself. These three probes aim to give you a taste of the types of questions asked and the discussion which is had in a P2P workshop. Of course, you don't have someone independent questioning and challenging you, so it takes a little effort and considered thought when answering these questions. Please expect them to be challenging and for the answers not to be obvious or quick. There's plenty of guidance and illustrative examples in the tool. I'll run through them at a high level now, just to give you a sense. So at its core, the customer efficacy probe is about the value your product creates for the customer. You'll be evaluating this more quantitatively than is typically done, by explicitly defining the loss that you remove from your customer's life and even putting a dollar value on it where possible. The customer adoption probe is about defining exactly what is hindering adoption of your product today. Is it getting customers to want your product, buy your product, or use your product correctly? You'll be encouraged to think about how adoption strategies can be integrated into the product itself and remove the burden from expensive sales and marketing strategies, such as below-the-line activations. The competitor barrier probe is about defining the unique resources your business has and the lock-in ingredients you have that protect you from competitors. I'll show you the customer efficacy probe as an example today, but each of the probes has a similar structure. They start with some explanation as to what the probe is about. Please read this section carefully, as it will explain the concept, but also some new language. Then you answer some questions about your business relating to that probe and rate your own business with respect to the probe. Understanding what you're being asked to do can take a few readings, so give yourself some time. And finally, there's a conclusion that you should read to put your answers into context. The probes can make you question some strategic decisions you've made so far in your business. And if that's the case, then we'd encourage you to reach out to Lighting Global to discuss further. For the financial alignment probes, we do three rough cost calculations. The first two costs deal with the cost of acquiring your at-scale customer base, and I'll explain this concept in a bit more detail shortly. They include the cost of the sales visits needed to acquire the at-scale customer base, and the cost of the marketing required to generate the required number of leads from which the at-scale customer base are then acquired through the sales visits. And the third rough cost calculation is the cost of working capital. We chose these three because they tend to be important cost drivers for off-grid solar businesses. A couple of notes about the calculations. Firstly, all these calculations are done at scale. As I noted earlier, at scale is where you are as a venture in terms of your aggregate customer base by the end of your investment period or your planning horizon. In numerical terms, your at-scale customer base is equal to your at-scale penetration rate and market share, which are two inputs you provide, multiplied by your total addressable market. The cost of acquiring your at-scale customer base, the first two costs we rough out, is the cost of acquiring these customers the first time round. By knowing your at-scale customer base, we could then estimate the total units of product sold over the investment period. The three costs calculated are then distributed over the total unit sales. Secondly, all three cost calculations are represented as a proportion of gross margin. And this is so that you can see the direct impact they will have on the profitability of your business. Finally, we take a bottom-up activity driver approach to calculating these costs. This means, for example, that the cost of sales we calculate is driven by the number of customers we need to acquire, the number of sales visits each one needs to be acquired, and the time it takes to do a visit. We then convert the number of required salesperson hours into a cost. Using an activity driver approach brings much greater clarity to the underlying operational assumptions on which the costs are ultimately based. This is, of course, a short demo, so please do read through the financial probes introduction before you start, as it explains how some of these calculations link to the business model alignment probes. In short, the inputs that you'll need for your financial calculations, price, gross margin, conversion rates, and market share, should be all based on your answers to the business model alignment probes. The business model alignment probes, in other words, help determine what numbers are credible and realistic. The financial probes serve as a way to check if these credible performance inputs also lead to profitability. Each of the calculations will be walked through, and the calculation part will be done for you behind the scenes. For some calculations, we've provided default inputs. For example, for the income screen, we've set a default value of 85%, but if you think the number is different, then you can simply change it here. Elsewhere, numbers will be pulled from where you inputted them into the other parts of the model. And you can feel free to go back to earlier points in the tool to change your inputs by simply clicking on the capsule icon and going back to the dashboard. Naturally, please avoid the temptation to game the system and find inputs that make the numbers look good. So if you do decide to play around with the numbers, bear in mind that changing your conversion rate, for example, should be reflected by a corresponding change in your customer adoption strategy. In other words, if you're going to convert more leads to customers, you should be clear as to how your business model is adjusted to yield a higher level of performance. The financial probes in the capsule cannot produce a detailed financial model of your business as the workshop would. Think of them as a weather vane. For example, if the calculation says that you're spending 50% of your gross margin on marketing, that should raise concern, because even if the actual costs fluctuate by 10, 20, even 30%, you're probably still in a red zone. The last calculation is the cost of working capital. This may be different to some working capital calculations you've done before. In the capsule, we take the total revenue you should expect to receive from your products on a monthly basis and subtract the cost of running your business when it's at that size. So, for example, if you're halfway to scale, we'll assume that your running costs are half what they would be at scale. The difference between those two numbers is your working capital, and that is the cash gap that you have to fill. If you're not offering installment payments, this calculation won't be relevant to you. Let me stop there. Hopefully that short demo has given you a good introduction. Completing the capsule certainly takes some time and effort. We appreciate we've shared a lot today, so we'd encourage you just to open it up, use it, and experiment with it. Ultimately, we hope you find it valuable for the important work you're all doing. Once you've finished, have a read of the last section on path to profitability. It may help put some of your answers into context and provide some guidance as to the next steps. So with that, I'll conclude the demonstration. I'll pass back to Milan to wrap up, after which you may have time for a few questions.
Thank you, Robbie. So your next steps are to please download the program. The link is on screen, also in the invite to this webinar. I'm sure it will be sent to you again after this webinar. If you have questions, if you require any assistance, you can reach out to Kevin Kennedy. His email is on screen. This webinar has been recorded and a recording will be shared. And once you've used the capsule, please provide 2 minutes of feedback using the survey, and a link will also be shared. I know we shared a lot with you on this webinar. It may feel a little bit overwhelming, but as with any piece of software, we'd really encourage you just download it, use it, play with it, get familiar with it, and we sincerely hope that it's helpful to you in this important work that you're all doing. Thank you very much. We have a few minutes left over. If Naomi from the IFC would like to invite any questions, we're very happy to take some. Otherwise, we can also wrap up there, and you can send any questions that you have by email.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to take the opportunity to welcome questions in the last 3 minutes that we have remaining. If you have a question, you can either put it in the chat box or unmute yourself and ask away.
Hi, this is Shahriar from Soulshare. I'm leading the sales and after sales team. So my question is like, is it absolutely free, right? The tool is absolutely free. So is there any option for advanced level or general level, so that for advanced level I have to pay, otherwise it's free. Is there any options like that?
Yeah, so thank you for raising this question, and I'm sorry if this is not clear, and I'll explain to you why. But the Path to Profitability Capsule, which is the tool that we just explained, that is absolutely free. And so please share it, use it, absolutely free. If you would like to work with Lighting Global or would like to work on Path to Profitability more on future, we are hoping to continue with the workshop provision. In the past, we have done so for existing Lighting Global clients. So for that, I would encourage you to reach out to Kevin. Lighting Global will be continued through the World Bank and not through IFC, and hence we are trying to figure out where the workshops will sit. But in the meantime, I would encourage you to log your interest with us through Kevin, please.
Thank you.
I have a second question. My name is Adam, and I'm from Underwriter Laboratories.
Hi.
Hi. It seems that the software and the approach is extensible outside of this this very particular domain of expertise. Who developed the software, and are they available to customize it for different organizations?
Yes, so that's absolutely right. I think this approach and methodology is applicable way beyond off-grid solar. So thanks for this question. It was developed by TIL Ventures. You see the three gentlemen who've developed it for IFC, and I will hand over to Milan and Eric to continue.
Yes, thank you, Naomi. Adam, the short answer is yes, it is applicable outside the scope of off-grid solar. It is particularly relevant for any activity involving new market creation, where there is a market where profitable business models do not currently exist and profitable business models must be created. This approach is relevant. We have, through a number of years of working with the IFC, customized and tailored it to be applicable to off-grid solar. And of course, what is contained in the capsule is only the essence and what can really be communicated in a short software tool. There's a significant body of knowledge which sits above that. And if you or anyone else would like to speak with us to learn more, we'd be delighted to do so.
And how would we reach out and contact you?
Adam, I'll send you emails.
Great, thank you so much. That was a great answer.
Great. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Goodbye.